and my Redeemer.
Amen.
Y'all are so lucky today. This sermon has 2 note cards instead of 15 or 20. Today in Psalm 121, the psalmist sings a song of ascent, ascending unto the mountain in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built on 2 mountains. And as they came to the temple, 3 times a year is required for their sacrifices for their sins to be made. They would sing the psalms as they walked through. Typically Psalm 118 through in the 120 some odd. They were their hymns. And verse 1 and 2 said today, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my strength. Different versions of those 2 verses read with a different inflection. Some versions say it like this, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will come my strength? It is generally accepted by theologians that the hills that they were speaking of were the city of Jerusalem, the temple, from where God was. The Lord your God is one, the Jews said, and he is here in his temple. You must approach him in his temple. So from those hills which form Jerusalem, the psalmist says, where will my strength come from? Because a minority of theologians think that perhaps the psalmist was intimidated by the pagan hills of worship that surrounded Jerusalem, and was saying in those first 2 verses, I look up at those hills where people worshiped Baal, success, money, fertility. They were seeking a salvation on this earth from those hills. But most theologians think they were praying that they knew that their God was on those hills in Jerusalem and that they would come there for strength and salvation from God the Father. Now in verse 7 and 8, where's my song? I lost it here. Where's my song? He says, in my coming in and my going out, God is with me. What does he mean by that? He's finishing this psalm. He means from my birth until my death, he is with me. If I will lift up my eyes to receive him, if I will open my ears to hear him, he will take care of me from my womb, my mother's womb, all the way until my death. Whereupon he will prepare a city for me eternally that will overcome all the problems I've had in this life. Our Hebrews reading today might be called Faith in God Until the End. The first 2 verses of this 11th chapter of Hebrews are those famous words that faith is for the things hoped for that you have no evidence that they will be. But they form out of that faith something of solid value in your heart and mind. Verse 6 of the 11th chapter, around those stories of those famous faithful Old Testament figures says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. If you have no faith that he is there, that he exists, you cannot please God. You must believe in the God of the Old Testament and his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. Verse 13 of that chapter said, they died faithfully awaiting the promise. What was the promise? They expected a messianic king to come and lead them to a type of promised land. They expected wonderful things from God the Father. And even though they didn't see the full fulfillment, complete fulfillment of what was promised to Abraham, the father of many nations, that his descendants would be as grains of sand on the ocean. Even though they never saw the reality of what that meant, that all the Gentiles and all the pieces of people of the world would become descendants of Abraham. Even though they never saw that come to fruition because they were dead. It says that they looked forward at this time, even now, to what was going to happen when the Messiah came. And in return for that faithfulness that they had during life and afterward, God has prepared a heavenly country for them. A country and a kingdom not made with hands, but a kingdom from above. And that he honors them for their faith. Let us follow their examples as we live in that new kingdom. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen.